Today, the Christian Church commemorates one of its most celebrated saints, Mary of Magdala. She is special for three reasons. First, in St. John's Gospel, we are told that after he rose from the dead, Jesus appeared to her before anyone else. Second, she did as Jesus asked her and told the other disciples she had seen the Lord. She is therefore known as the Apostle to the Apostles. And third, with hardly any evidence to go on, people for centuries made up salacious stories about her relationship with Jesus, and they still do. Although she's much misunderstood, Mary Magdalene is a bright light in the church, shining into dark corners of the human psyche. Early in the 13th century, the Chancellor of the University of Paris, one Philippe de Grève, composed a hymn in honor of Mary Magdalene. He set her in what we have come to know as the Easter Garden. In the hymn, she is traumatized from having witnessed Jesus' execution 2 days previously, and she now is finding his tomb empty. And so she's too far gone in grief to know who it was that had come beside her. And so the hymn begins, Mary, weep not, weep no longer. Now thy heart hath found its goal. Here in truth the gardener standeth, but the gardener of thy soul, who within thy spirit's garden, by his love hath made thee whole. Notice how in the last line of that verse, by his love hath made thee whole, the Chancellor deals gently but firmly with all that people don't know about Mary's earlier life. He reminds her, and he reminds us, that some years previously, through grace of Jesus' love, she became a whole person. Perhaps in the years following, there were rumors about her and Jesus. Certainly in the centuries since, there have been many. How was Mary to live with and recover from all of that? Philippe de Grève insists that it would be more than enough for her, and by extension for all of us, to respond to her soul's gardener with love, gratitude, and obedience. He would recover from trauma. And so the hymn continues, softly but resolutely encouraging. Now, from grief and lamentation, lift thy drooping heart with cheer. While for love of him thou mournest, lo, thy Lord regained is here. Fainting for him, thou hast found him. All unknown, behold him near. One day in 1975, while I was leafing through the English hymnal, I chanced upon this hymn. I was struck by its beauty, both words and music. The words were translated from Latin by Lawrence, younger brother of Alan E. Housman, author of A Shropshire Lad. The music that caught my eye was notated in plain song, and it straightway sounded in my imagination as sung by a choir in the 13th century in the Cathedral of Notre Dame. I wondered if I could turn that medieval music into a song that might help this little-known hymn find its way into the hearts and voices of worshippers today. But there was a problem. The plain song seemed overly solemn. as though the singers couldn't quite let themselves go and sing out their Easter joy. There are further verses in the Chancellor's hymn, as movingly written and translated as the first two, but I couldn't see the hymn as written taking off in congregations today. After a time, I found a way that might possibly appeal to contemporary worshippers. First, I composed two more verses to serve as verses 3 and 4, the last verse, that picked up the Lord's commission to Mary, "Go and tell my people that I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." In the first of these verses, I continued to use thee and thou, as Laurence Housman had done. But for the last verse, aiming for instant impact, I brought the words into the familiar present. Now may all who hear your story. So here's how it continues. Love, love who greets thee, lives unbounded, bids thee loose thy longing hold, sends thee to each sister, brother, that the gospel might be told. Tell whom thou hast seen and worship, God's own word shall make thee bold. Now may all who hear your story, all be moved by your great love, all be freed from fear and torment, all give thanks to Christ above, all inbreathe the source of glory, all receive God's Spirit dove. And then I couldn't help it. I felt the hymn starting to dance. It cried out for music to dance to, so I turned the plain song melody, still sounding quite medieval, into a piece I could imagine people dancing, as a kind of conga, or as a hoe, passing hand by hand in a circle. In church on Easter morning, I could picture girls and women singing the first two stanzas, followed by an instrumental verse, perhaps, flute or recorder, with tambour or other drum, and during which someone from the congregation, perhaps a young person, would dance up, down, or even round the nave and the chancel. And then the third or fourth verses would be sung by full congregation and four-part choir, with organ and any or all other instruments joining in. And at the very end, and I think that this would be at the end of the service, the dancer and the choir would begin their conga of whatever, and any and everyone who wished to join in would, and they would stream out into the churchyard and into the street, full of Easter gladness, proclaiming the glory. Jesus, teacher, friend, crucified and risen Lord, open the eyes of our hearts, be they grieving or be they glad. Let us see you enthroned on high, and with us all, each one, forever. Amen. You can find the music score and a recording, a piano recording, at www.dougconstablehymns.com/hymns/Mary weep not, weep no longer.